Hello and welcome back to the Ice Mac MMA podcast. I'm Jackson McCarty. I'm joined with Alex Eisman. And before we get into an extremely chaotic card, a couple different pieces of news that came out during and directly after it, and kind of talk about what the rest of the year looks like for this podcast. I do need to make sure you know where to find us, in future episodes. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and then typically YouTube. We had a bit of a blip. We did not have our last episode up on YouTube, but this one will be. All of them should be. Just a little bit of a minor issue. But Alex, after how hyped up this card was, do you feel it lived up to expectation?
I think it did. I mean, especially with the prelims, like we had some awesome fights on the prelims. And for the main card, I think most of the fights went kind of the way we expected them to go. Obviously, you would have liked to see a bit more of an exciting main event, but that's just when you're fighting Colby, that's just kind of what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I mean, he was always a boring fighter.
Yeah,
Like
but
no two ways about it.
no, I thought it was a fantastic card. We got some um in particular the Irina Aldana and Powerhosa fight was in particular, like, that one stood out to me. I don't know if it ended up winning fight of the night or not actually,
I have
but
no idea.
but
I'll
like
look up the right now.
but like I remember just talking a couple weeks ago about how the Amanda Hebos and Luana Pinheiro fight was one of the best women's MMA fights that I've ever seen. And I don't think it held a candle to what we saw on Saturday. That was awesome. That was pretty
Yeah,
sweet.
that was legitimate. I mean, we texted about that. I think that was probably in my top 10, you know, genderless
Yeah.
ranking. Like that was just an incredible fight. So, it did win fight of the night.
Okay.
And then performance of the night bonuses went to Josh Emmett, Lipsky, and Shamil Gaziv.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, stiffened Shavkat a little bit, huh?
Yeah, but I think the nature of it was probably why that happened because it was just hold him on the ground and make him
Yeah.
tap. It
Yeah.
wasn't really any flash, I guess. But that's one of the pieces. I didn't even put that down as our news thing, but him coming out and saying, "Hey, I had an injury." So did uh Aldana.
I didn't know Aldana did. This is
Aldana's
this is news to me. Wow.
Aldana in her post fight said she had a left knee injury, and that's the leg that was getting sawed at.
Wow. She's a dog.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, if she is a dog, if that's true, if that she took the damage that she did in that fight on that leg, coming in already injured, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's what she
Shout
said
out
in
to
her
her,
post
man.
fight.
That was awesome. Yeah,
And it might have been like a lost in translation issue. She might mean that she has one now, but from everything I understood, both of those folks came into their fights with injuries and both came out winners.
well, we knew Shavkat would. We knew that. Aldana, I mean, you never know with the way the last fight went because Amanda Nunes makes everyone look like an amateur, but like she it didn't seem like she was injured in that fight, I'll tell you that. But
No, no, that when we'll get to talk about that fight more, but definitely a step up and a very strong thing on her resume to be able to look at, even if she's not a future champion, to be like, you got to watch when Aldana's in the cage. But I think the first thing we should start with here was some stuff that didn't even happen in the cage.
the extracurriculars.
Yes, Dana is a madman for putting Strickland and Dricus that close. And my favorite part of all this is the video that's been circulating of him asking Gilbert Burns' child to move out of the way so he can jump over and just go bananas on Dricus.
Rodriguez. Did you see Gilbert's wife tweeted? She was like, "I don't like Sean Strickland's trash talk, but he's a gentleman. He told us to move out of the way before he beat the shit out of Dricus." I thought that was hilarious.
Dude, well, yeah, and it's just like you don't have to like him, but you at least have to respect him in the
I,
sense of
I mean,
his.
that's just objectively super funny.
Yes,
That's super funny.
yes. And well, and the video is like he's got a big smile on his face whenever he's asking the kid and Burns's wife to move. and then just launches. It's
Yeah, because he's sick in
so
the
good.
head, dude. That guy is he has so many screws loose. Like, oh my God.
God, he does. He really does. But he's kind of become he's the real life version of what Colby is.
Yeah, he's what Sean Strickland is, what Colby thinks he is.
Correct. He's like
Yeah.
the actual like blue collar, insane portion of America that like basically tweets into a void. Like that doesn't like their crazy thoughts are not objectively like cared about because they're not in this big scale. But now Sean is basically giving is a platform for all these just insane thoughts.
Yeah. Well, and that's because and Sean is genuine. Colby is very clearly forced. And that's why I'm like I don't like Colby. I don't like him as a fighter. I don't like his whole thing because it is super forced. It's like not it's not genuine. Sean is like there are some times where I'm just like God, man, like you need to stop talking, but at the same time it's just like it really is just that crazy. And like
Yes.
a little you just have to respect that a little bit, you know?
Yes. You have to respect the authenticity to himself. He
Yes.
is not going out there and put like he is a champion now. He could be an ambassador for the company. But he has no interest. He's going to be Sean Strickland,
Yeah.
with a belt or without one. He's going to be Sean. Um, and part of that includes, winning a crowd fight against Dricus. I have
Yeah.
not seen a Dricus shot landed.
Oh,
I
he
saw like
landed
seven.
some clean shots on Drigas, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude. At one
that
point,
was,
the first punch looked like he just spiked a knuckle into the top of his head.
yeah, that was, there was bad intentions there. And the fact that he was smiling before he went and did it is that's just sick. That's
He's
sickening,
insane.
dude.
But you know how good it must feel for him, like with the gun situation, whenever somebody tried to break into his home or whatever it
Yeah.
was,
Oh, he
or
loved it. He
dude,
definitely ate that shit up. It's like,
because
oh, I finally get to kill someone.
yes, he's just like I finally get to go out here and just go insane. Like he has to be so regimented and so like not like he can't be lethal in the cage. He
Yeah,
can cause harm, but he cannot be lethal. Giving those opportunities gives him a chance to just kind of be a rabid animal, and that's all
yeah,
he wants.
yeah, yeah.
He's going to be awesome for BKFC whenever he goes down the hill.
Oh my God. Imagine Sean and Mike Perry fighting.
Dude,
That would be the
imagine the
most
press
memeable
conference.
Ever, dude.
Dude, the press conference would be like 2012's COD lobbies.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so bad. It's gonna be so bad. It's gonna
Oh
be
my God.
peak toxic gaming. And I don't know if I'm ready for it or not, but
That press conference itself is going to set society back 50 years.
yes, we might have to have another civil war just
Yeah.
against Mike Perry and Sean Strickland once they get talking around each other. Um, but the other big piece of outside of the octagon stuff does apply to future fights. Because Michael Venom Page, despite the reports that he was a PFL athlete
PFL,
now,
yeah.
he is a UFC fighter and he's fighting Big Mouth.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a good fight for him to come in to the promotion on, I think, because like Kevin Holland's a guy who is always fun. He's not the most talented, he's not the best, but it'll be a good measuring stick, one for MVP, but also just an entertaining fight in general.
yeah,
Um, and so I love that. I love that as his first fight in the promotion. Kind of warms him up to some of the maybe better competition in the division, but at the same time, to test, and it'll be a fun fight.
yeah. I do wish this move would have came 3 years ago. It does feel like it's a bit after whenever it should have happened. Because MVP is starting to get a little bit older and starting to lose a little bit of his touch, but he's still a draw. He's still one of the few guys that people knew outside of the UFC. Um, and Kevin Holland, again, it's going to be a really fun press conference and it's going to be a really fun fight. And that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Well, it's like bringing Michael Chandler into the UFC. Like, yeah, you would have liked to see him there a couple years earlier, but at the same time, better late than ever. Like he's still
Yeah.
going to give you. He's Michael Venom Page is going to give you the fights that you're looking for out of him, just like Michael Chandler has since he's been in the UFC too, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's actually dead on. That's a very good comp because they are in almost identical situations. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with that. And I'm looking forward to being able to predict more MVP fights
Yeah.
coming up because getting to know MVP as a UFC fighter is going to be a ride.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and for however long it lasts, every time he gets in there, it's like Michael Chandler, it's gonna be must watch television. So
Uh,
very
Absolutely.
very excited for that for sure. But now I feel like it's time to dive back into this card fully.
Yes.
Um,
And with the big ticket that did not provide the value that we thought it would.
no, but the value, I guess, it depends on how you look at it. Like I had a feeling that this was going to be a decision. I was hoping that Leon would knock Colby's head off
Yes.
after what happened at the press conference. But like realistically, Colby is a decision fighter. Leon is really a decision fighter too. Obviously, he had the headshot on Kamaru, and that's like one of the that'll go down in UFC history. But like for the most part, Leon is also a decision fighter, and he fought very smart, very measured. Like I was um I was impressed with him kind of being able to reel it in because obviously he was a lot of emotions there for him as well. And I thought he fought well. I thought it was super impressive how he was able to take Colby down twice,
Yeah.
really just to prove a point.
Yeah.
Like
Just to
he
be
didn't
like,
have
this
to
is how
do
much
that.
he was just like, no, this is just how much better I am at this sport than you are.
Yeah. And so those aspects of it, I was pretty happy with what Leon Edwards did. Um, but at the same time, you also wanted you of course you want to see more action and a little more violence rather than just kind of this, pick your shots and point fighting and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, Leon did what he needed to do. I don't know why the hell Colby got up after the fifth round thinking he won that fight. That was
Well,
that
so
was insane. But
did you see his post fight like actual presser, not his interview in the cage?
yeah, him saying that he only lost because the judges hate him because he likes Trump. All right,
Well, no, the part that he said he definitively won 3, 4, and 5.
that's ridiculous. 3 I thought was clearly Leon. 4 I thought could have gone either way. But um dude, going back to the Trump thing for a second though, that stadium erupted when he walked out.
Yeah.
That stadium was fully behind Colby too. Like
Yeah, man.
that is a non-factor whatsoever. Everyone was stoked to have Trump in the building. So like miss me with that bullshit,
Well,
please.
they were Colby fans.
Yeah.
Leon was getting booed
Yes.
like for the majority of the fight. Um, I guess if his angle is with the judges, we don't know what their reaction was to old Donnie walking in the building, but chances are they don't really care about your character, bro. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know that they actually care about this persona that you're putting on. I think they just kind of want to watch you fight.
Yeah, and you
And
did it. Like
yeah,
that was the ultimate like bitch move by Colby to like talk cuz obviously he's going to like talk a big game, but he stepped it up into, unspeakable. Like you can't bring stuff like Leon's dead father up.
no.
Like and to do that the whole week leading up and then just fight like fight like a bitch like you did for 25 minutes. Like
Can can we talk or can I talk about for a second what my week was like after I picked Colby?
yes, run us through it. Run us through it.
So I picked Colby. We recorded on Monday.
Yep.
I picked Colby. He then proceeds to get a haircut on embedded. He then says, Leon's will make, we'll visit your father when we're down in hell. And then he essentially kind of backed out of his trash talk, regardless of what he was saying to Leon. I know a lot of people think I was in character, is what he was saying. He might have been saying thought it was a character, but the fact that he was pretty, kind of froze a little bit regardless, did not look good. He had remorse, which you cannot have going into a fight. And then for the first time in his career, we had to watch him backpedal for almost the entire duration of a fight. He was not the attacker, he wasn't putting pressure on somebody. It didn't even look like Colby. Regardless of the rest of it, he didn't even fight like Colby. He just kept walking backwards.
Yeah, he never used his biggest weapon,
Yeah.
which was his pace. And maybe I don't know if it was Colby or Leon who Leon was dictating the pace, but I don't know, I guess, what stopped Colby from trying to push forward and shoot more takedowns. Because really, he didn't shoot all that much, I thought. Definitely not as much as he should, especially in the early rounds. Early
Yeah.
rounds, he maybe shot twice,
He has
one
to
in
be
each.
he had to be a volume monster there. Like he had to do what we'll talk about with Pantoja here in a minute. Like he had
Yeah,
to just flatten out. And he refused to do that at least for the first 10 minutes. And whenever he finally started moving in the right direction, it was way too late.
yeah. Like I hope we don't see Colby get another title shot again. You and I both were saying long before this fight was even announced, when it was still rumors, that Dana was hyper fixated on Colby. We're like, why?
Yes.
This dude has his best win in the last 5 years, maybe,
Jorge.
was Tyron Woodley. Watch
No,
Tyron Woodley,
I think Tyron's out of the 5 year window, isn't it?
maybe. Well,
Tyron's
because he
real
won, he
close.
won. Well, okay, so he won the interim title in 18, and that was against RDA. So okay,
So he had, yeah.
so his bet maybe 4 years. I don't know, but he lost to Kamaru twice, lost to Leon, and then beat Jorge
Jorge.
and Tyron Woodley. It's
Yeah.
like, no, for nobody else does that merit a title shot.
No.
Not even close.
No.
And we were both upset with the decision. As much as we collectively dislike Bilal, clearly deserved the title shot over Colby. And like, I don't know. And I'll tell you what also is kind of frustrating for me is Leon at his post-fight presser was kind of dodging, like he was like, "Oh, I don't know if Bilal deserves this title shot." And then they asked him about Shavkat. And he was like, he looked fine, but like, I don't know. It's like, dude, who the hell are you going to fight? Like, you are the champion. You should be welcoming everyone who steps across the octagon from you.
Yeah, but a guy like Shavkat, I get. A guy like Bilal, like, don't get me wrong. Bilal is a good fighter, but he's not the boogeyman.
No,
Like, you're naturally going to be a little bit hesitant to fight Shavkat because Shavkat's a monster. I'm not upset with him about that. But yeah, to kind of back away, I think he was just praying for, Wonder Boy win or something, like something that's going to shift more numbers, I guess, because Shavkat's not necessarily a draw yet. He will be, but I don't know that he is right now. And then Bilal certainly is not a draw. I think he's just wanting better pay-per-view points.
I don't know, man. Like, it's I to me, it's like a Bilal of your probably realistic three options right now are Bilal, Shavkat, and Islam.
Yeah.
I would 100 times out of 100 want to take Bilal Muhammad over
Yes.
either of those two other guys, because he gives me the best chance of keeping my title for another couple months
Yes.
until you inevitably have to fight Shavkat or Islam, who are, those guys are just, they're killers. They're killers.
So I wanted to pull up, what it looks like right now. So they're going to reschedule Ian Gary versus
Yeah.
Luke.
But like, he's not in the title picture yet.
No, but what's Gilbert's? So Gilbert's most recent fight was Bilal. If
You
Leon
can't
said,
justify giving it to Gilbert over Bilal, but at the same time, we've seen Cheeto Vera get a title shot
yeah,
solely off of the champ wanting him, and that's like, it's infuriating. Like yeah.
I'm trying to figure out the path that would be most beneficial to Leon as far as money and style. Um, Gilbert is probably the biggest draw that hasn't at least fought Leon for a title of the collection. And then if Ian beats Luque, there's now beef with Leon. So
Yeah.
you could do Gary versus Leon, even if Ian's seventh or sixth or whatever, because there's that storyline.
Yeah, and I know the UFC doesn't like to do the quadrilogies, but I think there would be a lot of demand to see Leon fight Kamaru again too,
Yeah.
especially after that Colby fight, because Kamaru looked way better against Colby than Leon did, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to see it again. The third fight was close. Obviously, Kamaru, what happened in the second fight was like insane. But I think that's one of those rare occasions where you could set up a fourth fight and people would be excited about it too.
I think people would be excited, but it makes as much sense as Gilbert does. Because, I mean, Marty just lost
But
again.
he took it on short notice, up a weight class.
I know, but it's just, he still lost. Like, that's the trick. Like, he's now on a 3-fight losing streak. Like, Gilbert
Yes,
is on
he
at least
is.
a one.
He is. He is. I think one win at welterweight puts Kamaru back in that conversation, and it
I
might
agree.
be another fight with Gilbert too.
It could be. I would
I know they're
rather
boys now, and like they trained together before Kamaru fought Gilbert, but I think they're friends again. So maybe that's not in the cards. Maybe Kamaru fights Wonder Boy, but I don't know. I
Shavkat.
or Shavkat, yeah, or Shavkat, or Bilal,
Yeah.
even. It really depends on who you get. Who gets the next title shot? I think it should be Bilal, but if it's not, I think Kamaru versus Bilal to set up definitively who's next makes a lot of sense to me. But like, it's interesting. It's interesting the way the division is shaking out, and also the way Leon is reacting to the logical fights presented to him too. And that's it's a little annoying for me.
Yes, and that's totally warranted. It's just he's watching what's happening with Sean O'Malley, where you don't necessarily have to take the hard fights. You can just take the money fights and the ones with storylines, and a path where he fights Gilbert next, and then Ian, and then maybe Shavkat. Like
You
that's
can't
a
hold Shavkat down for that long, dude. You
man.
can't make him wait two more title fights. One,
But
I get. One, I
but he's
get.
not, but he's not moving numbers. That's all that matters. Shavkat's not a draw right now. You put him up against Marty, and he beats Marty, then you got a draw. Then you got some real numbers behind it. But I don't know that there's a bigger moneymaker in this company right now than Ian Gary. And that's just because of how many people are talking about him right
In
now.
the company,
Not in the company.
you. I
Not in
was
the
gonna
company.
say, bro,
In the weight class.
you're the biggest Sean O'Malley.
No.
Like, yeah,
No. In the weight class. Well, Ian Connor's still technically around.
yeah.
But who knows what weight class he's going to be at. But no, within this weight class, within reasonable champion or challengers rather, Ian Gary is the money guy because everybody's talking about Ian Gary right now. You can hotshot him,
Yeah,
especially if
I
he comes out and KOs Luke. You might not even have to do the Burns fight. You might just go straight to Ian.
yeah. Well, he's not fighting Luca anymore. He's fighting Neil.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
But still,
which
I mean,
which I think Neil's also a tough guy to finish too. So
yeah, I mean,
if he
well,
has
and
a
that's
big
one
performance,
better. That's
yeah,
one ranking better.
yeah. But still, you put out it. It's kind of the same trajectory as Shavkat though. Shavkat finished Neil, and he had to fight Wonder Boy. He still has, and he still maybe has another fight ahead of him. I could see it if Gary maybe skips one of those fights, but if he finishes Neil, he's not getting the next title shot. Maybe one and more, but Shavkat's gonna have to fight again one more time
Yes.
before he gets in that conversation. And I
Yes.
think Gary, like you said, because of his star power, might be able to skip one of those fights, but I would have such a hard time believing that a win over Jeff Neal puts him in the title picture, especially with how many deserving guys there are out there right now, too.
But if Ian beats Neil and gets that title fight, the same night, Dana comes out and says, "This is what we're booking next." It's still not the least deserving title fight upcoming in the new year.
That is correct.
And
Nothing will touch that.
and now that the bar's been set so low, Dana can just go hog wild and chase dollars. That's but we can wait on that. The point being, Leon retaining kind of looking sheepish as far as taking on real opponents and
Yes.
like the high value ones as far as in octagon ability.
Yeah. And
Uh,
Colby looking sheepish too in that
yes.
fight. Colby
Colby,
Colby talking his normal big game and not backing it up in the octagon once again.
can't wait for Colby to go to PFL. Um, that ought to be a real good time. All right, this next one, I really don't even have too much to say about the fight itself because Pantoja just went insane. My big thing was that Buffer said his name wrong twice, and he is a world champion.
Really?
Yeah,
I was like pretty drunk, so maybe I didn't notice it, but like I don't know.
he kept saying Pantoja.
Really?
Yeah, he said it
Yeah.
twice. And
I don't remember that.
one of my buddies texted me and was like, wow, he didn't even bump Buffer's name or didn't even bump fists with Buffer whenever he was doing the announcement. I was like, yeah, because he said his name wrong. He's probably pissed. And he did it again whenever he won.
When he won the belt, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I did not remember that, but um in terms of the fight, like wow. One because he looked like the more gassed out guy over the last 2 rounds for sure, I think. It looked like Royval had a lot more in the tank, but somehow, some way, Pantoja kept spamming the takedowns and it kept working.
Yeah,
Like he's a
even
monster.
he was straight up on E and he was still making it work. Like he looked gassed. He did not look ready for championship rounds. And he, like you said, he made it work. And that is all you can ask for from a champion. He'll improve upon that, the more he has to do these fights and the longer these go. Um, but that fail or that constant ability to just keep pushing through it is what mattered in that fight. And he got it done.
Yeah, and now it's God, it's the flyweight division is fascinating right now
Yeah.
because you have like you have a guy like Makayev who's shooting his way up the rankings. Tagir, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, had a really good looking win. Uh, Brandon Moreno and Albazi are about to fight each other for I assume would be the immediately next title shot. But
Yeah.
I yeah, I'm it's going to be interesting to see how this division shakes out in the next year or so. But and it's I think it's entirely a possibility that Pantoja is the champ at the end of next year too, because that guy has got all the tools in the shed. He is awesome.
I think he's very, very good as well. I am worried about the volatility of this weight class and how insanely talented it is right now. Obviously, whenever we were doing our hot takes, he was not a champion at the same. One of my predictions was Islam was the only remaining champion in November of next year. I do think we'll probably see him get knocked off his perch, but I would not be shocked if he get a rematch after and takes it right back.
Yeah, because he like and you talk about the volatility of the flyweight division. I think Pantoja himself is also a pretty volatile fighter. Like he will have his days where the Alex Perez fight where he goes out and finishes you, backpacks you and finishes you in a minute within the fight. And then he'll have a fight like he did on Saturday against Royval where it looks like, maybe a better conditioned guy could take him out, could finish him. And that's not to say Royval's conditioning isn't good, but there are, there are guys who can weaponize cardio and just drain him. Um, and so it'll be super interesting to see, who, or I guess it won't be who he fights next. I think he'll fight Moreno next because I think Moreno will beat Elbazi. But that fight was close. That fight was a split decision, and we've seen Moreno lose to Figueiredo and get his belt right back. And yeah, it's gonna be it's flyweight is fun, man. Flyweight is fun. It's about time people start Dana White start realizing that.
All right, the next fight we've already talked about Shavkat quite a bit with his injury and coming in and just kind of being a demon and somebody that these guys don't want to face. He proved why people don't want to face him in this fight with that injury. Gets Wonder Boy out of there quick, efficiently. exactly what we expected, but still crazy to watch every time it happens.
Yeah, we knew that stylistically this was going to be really tough for Wonder Boy to pull off. Um, and it really just makes it even that much more impressive that Shavkat was able to do it with the injury that he had. Um, but yeah, I personally think that merits a title shot for him. I've always been very pro Shavkat. I think he is one of my rising stars that we drafted a little earlier this year. Um, but either way, I don't see him losing anytime soon. Is the bottom line. That guy
No.
is he is going to be the champion.
Well, and to make it clear, he should be the next challenger. I'm just
Yeah.
in a perfect world where we only value the fighter's abilities. He would already be champion. He wouldn't be
Yes.
waiting on a title shot. He would already be holding the belt. But that's just not how it typically goes. He should be, but he won't be yet. Um, but yeah, it's like you said, he's a freak, and you definitely were very beneficial. Was he your first overall pick?
I think he was because you had number one overall. I
Yeah,
had number two overall, and he was that pick for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I went Blanchfield because of
Because of
I,
the
I thought she was
two
so
belt
clear.
potential, women's
Yes,
MMA. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Um, but yeah, Shavkat could be an actual two belt holder too. Like he could just
Yeah.
do whatever he wanted to do at this
Yeah.
point. Um, so definitely not because the scariest part of the card's coming up directly after this, but the saddest part of the card, um, Tony Ferguson, Paddy Pimblett. Obviously we've talked about it. I didn't really get or not that I don't get it, but like I didn't establish this connection with Tony. The portion of what happened with Tony's career whenever I became a fan, he was no longer really at that pinnacle for me. So his rapid decline has not been that jarring for me, but I can like this is not Tony. And even Dana coming out saying that he should retire should really just encapsulate what this fight was, which was just sad.
Yeah. And what kind of um encapsulates this whole Tony Ferguson saga that we've seen over the last few years is like it's considered a win that Tony didn't get finished in this fight.
Yeah. Well, and there were moments
Yeah.
that did not look to be the case. Patty's still letting his chin hang up in the air way too much,
Yeah.
but he looked better than he had previous.
Yeah. Once he gets out of once he fights someone ranked, he's going to get exposed a lot. And honestly, Patty wasn't as annoying this week as he has previously. So that was like kind of nice to see.
I would argue he
Um,
was the
he was
second
pretty
funniest
pleasant.
person. I would argue he was the second funniest person we saw all weekend outside of Sean Strickland.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess. I don't know. It's maybe Patty realized he was kind of being an ass before and is trying to I don't know, maybe not be such a dick.
He's
But
probably watching Ian Gary and being like, "Oh, that's what would have happened to me if I wouldn't have had a bad fight against Jared Gordon and been hidden for 9 months."
yeah. Well,
And
he
he's
was
like,
hurt. He had surgery. So
"Yeah, but hidden in the sense of we don't talk about him because he's
yeah.
not being involved in any fights or anything."
Yeah.
Um, he probably was watching that and he's like, "I should avoid that actually." um, but yeah, man, Tony, please just retire.
Yeah, at this point it's like, dude, you in the thing is like I feel like retiring isn't going to undo the damage that his legacy has already taken, you know? Like
Yeah,
he needed to retire 2 years ago and people would still be considering Tony Ferguson one of the greatest lightweights of all time, and I know that's not fair
no,
because his prime was insane and awesome. But like I think I don't want to compare it to Anderson Silva because Anderson Silva was champ and had the longest title reign ever, but it's like the way Silva's career ended, I feel like people kind of forgot how good he was when he was at the top of the mountain, you
yeah,
know?
it had definitely lost his luster. Um, but yeah, he never really got like dismissed, I guess. Um, Glover went through a really sharp dismissal But like
Yeah.
Tony's has been so prolonged, that it's just like, yeah, like I don't know if there's ever been anything quite like this.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and yeah, I just want it to end for the sake of everyone involved.
yeah, because and at this point, it's like a Tony Ferguson fight. It's not going to be a fight where you're like, it's whenever you see someone fight Tony Ferguson now, it's a foregone conclusion that whoever is fighting Tony Ferguson is going to win, and I don't think that's fun for anyone.
No,
And
no,
like,
well,
of course, you're going to get fights like that where it's just severely outmatched, and like, of course, that'll happen just like once in a while, but it's become consistent with Tony Ferguson, and that's part of why it's not fun, you know?
yeah, it will. And even if you remove it being Tony, just knowing that there's going to be an uncompetitive fight and it's going to be an older guy that's broken down and lost it. Like that's just not fun. Like that's whenever we watch the Ihor Potierra stuff, like it's whenever you get down into that realm, it's like you can't put that on as a company that wants to make money and sell a good product. Like
Yep.
simple as you have to get them off the screen.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot to say. That didn't do a whole lot for Patty for me. I think he needed to have a finish in order to like, elevate a lot. But a decision win over Tony Ferguson at this stage is nothing impressive.
Who's gonna carry the bolts, lad? Did you see that clip?
Yes.
I love it, dude. That was my favorite part of anything that had to do with Patty this week.
You have a pretty good Scouser accent, though. I'll give you credit on that. That's pretty
I,
good.
well, I'm a Liverpool fan, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it
what.
makes sense. It makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
that's the only one I've got. If you ask me to do any kind of British, it's going to be Scouse. No other ifs and buts about it. All right, this next fight was horrifying. I'm sorry to make it such a harsh jump, but like this is one of those fights that I do just kind of have to force myself into talking about,
Yeah.
um, because whoever was directing the broadcast spent about 15 seconds, way too long, on Bryce having a seizure in the
Caesar.
octagon, and I don't know whose idea that was, but that was bad.
Yeah, that
Also,
was
people are making memes of it now, and that's got me very uncomfortable.
yeah, I know that's your guy too. So it's like,
I don't know that I want to see seizure memes.
yeah.
I think that's more my issue. Like Bryce is from Arkansas, but if it was Josh Emmett, I'd still be like, hey, maybe we
Yeah,
don't make
that's a
seizure
little
memes.
sus. Yeah, I haven't really been seeing seizure memes, but like maybe our feeds are a little different. But I feel like we're both MMA, so I feel like I probably should be seeing them if they're showing up for you. But
There was only a couple, and it was like it didn't have anything to do with seizures. It was just like I think one of them
yeah,
had something to do with like shaking ass, because
yeah,
obviously his legs were twitching. Um, and I was like, I don't know about all that, but that punch that Emmett, like that wasn't even like a KO spot, man. That was just his nose and
his
forehead
face,
and
the middle of
eyes.
his face. Yeah,
Yes, like he threw a brick dead center of Bryce Mitchell's head, and it put him out.
and that's what we talked about last week. Is Josh Emmett is one of the most powerful fighters, pound for pound in the promotion, and all it was going to take was one shot, and it did not take very long to find that one shot. That was one of the most devastating knockouts I've ever seen. I
Yes,
think you would agree as well.
I don't
Um,
I don't know that I
aside, honestly, seizure aside, because
yeah
that I know is like a reaction sometimes when
yeah. That's
you,
but that happens when you take
yeah,
blunt force trauma to the head. That's something you have
yeah,
to be prepared for as an MMA fighter.
yeah,
I don't know, like I'd have to go back and figure out um the best knockout of the year. But if we do a nastiest knockout of the year, it's that. Because it wasn't like technically proficient. He just threw a fastball right into Bryce's forehead.
yeah,
It was just horrifying.
yeah. That was Shadow Realm in every sense of the term. Like
Yeah.
when you talk about sending someone to the Shadow Realm, in the dictionary, the picture is going to be Bryce Mitchell flatline on the
Yes.
canvas.
It,
Yeah.
literally just like his whole brain just getting actively turned off from
Yes.
a spot that was not where the button is. You know what I mean? Like, ugh, horrifying stuff. Good. You know, the good thing is that Bryce,
Bryce is healthy.
yes,
Yeah.
he was okay. Joe Rogan was about ready to come and carry him to the back. Um, which it was kind of crazy that they were letting him walk around.
Yeah.
But, one of my buddies was texting me about it, and he's just like, man, I hope Bryce didn't get on social or whatever after this. And I was like, man, he's probably not going to be allowed to be on his phone for a week because of concussion protocol. Like,
Hmm.
legitimately, like he might just have to sit in
Chill
solitude.
out for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that was ruthless. Big win for Josh Emmett. Bryce just kind of back down in the pecking order. Um, and thoughts and prayers with Bryce because
Yeah.
that was a
For real.
nasty, nasty, nasty knockout.
Yeah. You got to give credit to Josh Emmett though, because it was horrifying uh in the best way possible for Josh Emmett. Like
Yes.
that was crazy.
That
Yeah.
is a statement gets for Josh.
Yes. Yes.
Now let's get to where the money was made. Now let's talk about feeding families. Menafield and Jacoby, banger. Absolute banger. As we knew it would be.
What did we say last week, man?
As we knew.
What did we say last week, man?
Well,
We
dude,
called our shot.
yeah. It
We
wasn't
called
and
our shot,
it
and it
wasn't a hard
was
shot either.
no, no, and but it was a super competitive fight. Like really, what won Zoe this fight was he just had the biggest moments. He had knockdowns in rounds 2 and 3, and Jacoby was landing more. He was landing probably more efficiently, but Zoe had the biggest moments of the fight in rounds 2 and 3, and that got him a win,
Yeah.
which was great. Yeah.
Jacoby worked the fight better. Menafield defined the fight better.
Yes.
That's I mean, you can talk about the 80% all you want, but when the 20% are as ruthless and memorable as what Menafield put out there, the 80% don't matter. All that matters is what, those key crucial moments where Jacoby looked like he didn't know where he was anymore.
Yeah. He was in some serious trouble in both of those last 2 rounds. And credit to him for kind of pulling himself out of it and still, you know, and still landing more and landing as cleanly as he did. But at the end of the day, it was just it came down to Zoe's power. Like we said, Zoe has the power to shut anyone down. And while he didn't completely shut Dustin down, he did enough to make him touch earth
Yeah.
and win him the fight.
It was two warriors doing warrior things, and Menafield had just had more power on the night. They got him through it.
Yep.
This
Yep.
next one though, we did not have pinned as a fight of the night candidate. We've already
No,
talked about it a little bit, but boy, howdy, talk about feeding families. Um, Aldana, man,
that
golly,
was that was insane, and we have dogged this division over and over again because for so long Amanda Nunes has been the only exciting person that we enjoy watching. But wow, if this is a sign of things to come in women's bantamweight, like look out because this is going to be one of the better divisions in all of MMA.
well, and shout out Carol Rosa too because it was like she did good for herself.
Yes. Oh,
She
she
hung
put
in.
herself in a position to, I don't want to say win the fight, but like she did enough certainly to like maybe get a split decision. You know?
She didn't go out and lose any stock in this
No.
fight.
No.
Um, but you are highly mistaken if you think I'm going to miss the next Aldana fight
Oh my
because
god.
that the next one, and until she quits doing this, must watch television.
Do you think she gets another title shot after this? I think
Uh, Maybe. I mean, she didn't get put out by Amanda,
she
and
didn't. No. I
and
mean, she has showed the last 2 fights in particular that she is tough. She is tough.
warrior spirit.
Yeah.
Warrior spirit, man. And she might get a title shot. I don't know what they're planning really. Because like it all just seems very like we'll figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just like we'll just stumble into our answers. But that's kind of a breath of fresh air right now within this division, and I think that that could be what we see. We see dominant champions leave and divisions become very, very good very quick because now everybody's on the same playing field. I'm hoping that that's what continues, and I'm hoping Aldana's a big part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really, what's unfortunate is that Aldana is like 35 or 36. So, it's not like you're going to get many more years of this high level entertaining fights out of her. But God, while it's happening, we'll enjoy it for sure.
Yeah, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Speaking of, um, you don't know how giddy I was whenever I saw Cody do that little look off and then throw the right and just oh my God, dude, I was having the time of my life during that altercation, man. I am so happy. Prime no love for one night only because I know it won't happen again. I could not have been any more pleased with what I saw.
Yeah, and that was another knockout. Not as emphatic as Josh Emmett's, but a knockout where he did just kind of punch him straight in the middle of his face and he fell and and couldn't do it anymore. Like that was I loved it. I support Cody Garbrandt. Obviously, that's your guy. That's a guy who has a very special place in your heart. So I was happy for you that we got a Cody performance like that. But that was pretty awesome to see. Just to see one of the greats, turn back the clock a little bit and mix it up in there and get a knockout. It was awesome.
I don't have very many true fan moments anymore. You like a lot because partially because of the podcast, partially because I don't have this nearly this rooted investment in a lot of these guys. I do see it more as like on the business side. A lot of our conversations are mostly or more about money than the actual fighters. I was a true fan for that fight and like watching it was like watching Washington win a football game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was like a real oh my God moment for me. And I don't get those much anymore. So thank you, Cody, for piecing that together because that was just it was lovely. I needed that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, do you want to talk about the call out too?
No, no, I don't. Actually, I would rather do anything but talk about that call out because I will cry if they give him Figueredo. I don't
Uh,
want to see that at all. I want to move swiftly forward. But if we need to talk about it, he called out Figgy. I hope they don't give it to him.
I
You
don't
know,
think they will. I think that's a little too big of a jump, especially after Figgy beating Rob Font and
yeah,
Cody not being ranked. Um,
but it
but
is
hey,
Cody.
maybe on name value, exactly like they could.
Yeah, I would much rather just see Cody stay kind of where he's at and give me a little bit more optimism. I don't want to see him fight guys that would rip his head off. Um, but yeah, let's hope that that one falls flat on his face and he gets another fairly run of the mill opponent that he can
Yeah,
do cool stuff against.
yeah, yeah. Where he can beat Cody Garbrandt. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want him to be a punching bag. Next one, pretty big shock for as far as what we were seeing. It was a fun fight. Casey O'Neill, I still have faith in her. Worth mentioning. I do still think she's a talented fighter. Lipsky just looked really, really good.
she did look really, really good, but that was the that was the biggest concern I had with Casey O'Neill is like, was was this Maya performance just a fluke, flash in the pan, or is it or is it a sign of things to come? And like, you might be sold on her still as like one of the top talents. I after this, I don't know.
I don't
Now it's a trend. Now it's a trend.
I wouldn't say top talent. I think she will still end up being like a top 5 to 7 fighter when it's all said and done. I do think she is of that quality. She's no longer a champion caliber fighter, in my opinion, unless she does a lot of rehabilitation to her game. Lipsky though is somebody I'm gonna have to keep eyes on because that was efficient. Like
It was efficient. it was a great performance from Lipski, but I think this fight said more about Casey O'Neill than it said about Ariane Lipski. You know, because Lipski is still like pretty established as a fighter. She has a lot of experience under her belt, and she's never been like the world beater. You know,
No.
and Casey O'Neill came into the UFC with people thinking that she had title potential and stuff like that. And so my biggest takeaway from this fight is that Casey O'Neill is just one of those that isn't all that she was cracked up to be coming into coming into the UFC. And I know she's young and maybe it's unfair to kind of lay that on her, but at this now she has to show me something. Now she has to show me something to change my mind. Maybe she will, but I have a hard time believing that right now.
Yeah, but like you said, it's all about a waiting game now. Um, we just have to wait and see. Like we just have to see what kind of development comes up. Hopefully it is a situation where she can get back on track. Maybe she just needs to reset down the card to
Mhm.
build up and actually take a more measured approach this time instead of that hype train as it was.
Yeah.
And then the last one we've got Tagir sub, what we expected. Durden did look good though. You know, worth mentioning. He didn't disappoint me any.
Yeah. I mean, Durden fought off uh a lot of submission attempts before he eventually got choked out. But at the same time, Tagir starting the fight off with a knockdown was pretty impressive. Um, and then going to that backpack for for most of the second round, continuously working. You could tell he was kind of getting tired from all those submission attempts, but he finally locked that last one in, brought him back down to the ground, and finished it off. It was cool. It was cool.
Yeah, he squared it off. He was just relentless, and that's something that eventually every fighter, if you're held in that position for that long, you're gonna have to give in. Um, Durden did a really good job hanging in. Tagir did a really good job of staying resilient and relentless.
Yeah,
And
and I don't have as much faith in Tagir in terms of title potential as Umar
no,
or or Usman Nurmagomedov, I should say, even though he's suspended right now. I know, but like of those guys in the Nurmagomedov group, I think I I am not as sold on him still, but I think there's still a chance for him to maybe work his way into like title contention, but not as sure of a thing as I am with like Umar. I think that guy will be champion
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, he's in the camp, but he's not the golden one. He'll have value. He just is not the asset.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. If he can make a career out of being a 6 to 10 guy, nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. Not
Yeah,
at all.
but
Still getting paid.
yes, oh yeah, and decent money if you're up in that range too.
Yeah.
Or at least UFC decent. I don't.
Hmm.
We're not going to jump into a fighter pay thing right now.
Yeah.
That could be for a later episode. And speaking of, when that conversation comes for us to scream about fighter pay again, Alex, where can they make sure to find it?
Find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Alex Eisman, KGWN on Twitter. It's Jackson TM on Twitter. Next week is going to be a fun one because we're going to be doing our end of the year awards. It was a great time last year, and I think we're going to have to go back and because we made some predictions for 2024 as well, so we're
Yeah,
going to have to go back and listen to that one and remember what we were wrong about this year, so we
yeah,
can
oh
bring
yeah,
it up next week.
that'll be a good
Um,
time. Yeah, because we did do like I think it was like our January 3 episode,
yeah,
like we predicting. So yeah, we'll encompass those two things together and make it just a real like kind of like a special
yeah,
episode essentially.
yeah. To close the year out right. But yeah, that's all I got. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever, whatever you celebrate. Hopefully it's a good time of year for you.
Oh man. All right, yeah. We'll see you next week.